All right, welcome to another episode of the Freezin for NFC North Podcast. We are on episode number 7, the NFL 2021 Week 17. And in previous years, this would be the last week. It is not. How's it going, guys?
Good. Yeah, it's going pretty good.
Yeah, it was a lukewarm kind of. We're excited, but yeah,
I'm running out the podcast like the Vikings ran out on the field on Sunday, and it's like, yeah, it's fine to be here. Yeah, it's fine to be here.
It's a happy New Year going in, right? So we're moving into a happy New Year. So
yeah, we'll see. About time for a good year.
Well, kind of looking back to this past week, we had some matchups within the division that were obviously outside of division. So the Lions, they kind of fell a little bit flat, didn't they?
I mean, but that's been like a Lions game all season. This is what I've been talking about for weeks now, right? So this is a continuation of they come in, they play really good early, then they kind of flatline somewhere along the way. But this week, instead of losing the game at the end, they force the fumble. They get the ball back with, so they can actually go down and score a touchdown. They just can't get it done again this week. So, which is actually like it's a godsend, it's a godsend.
Oh yeah. Epic tank. Great tank. Great tank job.
The Lions, this is what I'm talking about. Be competitive. Yeah. Show that you can compete every week. Play strong for Campbell. And then just kind of give it away at the end and we're good. That way they've proven their point, and they don't need to get a worse draft pick. Now, again, I think if you're in the top 3-4, you're going to be really safe this draft of getting some type of talent, depending on where you're at. Obviously, the Lions, though, would like to have their pick of, defensive end. Or if you never know in these combines and the things go on and one of these quarterbacks sneak in there that they would rather have than Goff, then I could see that. But I really see them going maybe like defensive end. Or maybe even a possible piece to the offensive line if they end up at second, third pick.
Then you're in a really good spot for when you do draft a quarterback after you're bad again next year.
Correct.
All right. Because then you got the whole offensive line click in a little bit.
Yeah. So, the Lions in this game did really good to hold on to that 2 spot.
Oh, yeah.
prove they can play football. And if they get, if they get it, then they're, again, they can have a good draft pick at that point. And I really think, like I said, I think the power position for them is to play like they played this week, going to next year is with confidence with these young players that they've got. Some of these pieces they've got are going to be come up and make some points next year. But yeah, they're playing strong and they're playing tough for Campbell. Their offense just they can't piece it together for an entire game.
And they almost had 40 minutes of possession in that game. It was 38-22. I just looked at it.
They can't piece getting the ball in the end zone or scoring points. No. They did it against the Cardinals, but the Cardinals really helped them with short fields and giving balls, fumbles and turnovers that they didn't have to go very far down the field. So this week they kept having to kind of drive down the field, and it's just and they're down to a lot of backup people too playing for them. So again, though, it was a good week. They showed that they could play in the league. They went on the road, and they, it doesn't matter what team you go to in the NFL on the road. It's a tough game, regardless. So they went down there and they did what they did.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons have played teams, tough this year. I mean, obviously they've been in the playoff mix. So, I mean, it's not like the Falcons are a slouch.
Yeah, no, that's again, the Falcons, they have won. Was it last week or week before? I mean, they'd actually be the playoff spot right now. They lost a game they shouldn't have a couple weeks ago that they had won, and they lost it. So they actually could be in that 7 spot right now instead of the Eagles. But that one loss different. And again, the Falcons are still there competing. So
yeah, they're 1 game back or something like that.
7 spot there. It's Vikings, Falcons, and who else? Saints.
Vikings, Falcons, Saints. Yeah, and all of those teams would be pretty gross, probably.
So
yeah, you gotta love the 7 seed. Who of those teams do you really want to watch in the playoffs? I guess I'll bet the Vikings. The Vikings are probably the best of them, but
I was expecting. I thought one of these teams was going to get hot.
Yeah,
like one of these 6 and 7 teams over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I thought one was going to get hot, and it doesn't seem like that's happening. They're all kind of actually fading, which the Eagles
fading down the stretch. Yeah,
and the Eagles are now in the playoffs, and you never know with a quarterback like Hurts, who knows what he does to somebody.
Oh, not much in December. He loses winnable games at home is what he usually does. I mean, Andy knows. Andy knows. Yeah. He's handed a couple to him. Yeah, he no shows against good defenses in December. I know we were joking before the show. Is like, how many more wins do the Vikings have if they have Jared Goff from, say, after week 11? After that Packers win, like probably at least one more than they have now is what I would guess.
Well,
they could have beaten the Rams with Jared Goff. Could have beaten the Rams with any. Go ahead.
They could have beat the Rams. They could have beat the Vikings at least once. They could have had some chances, but they blew them. But Goff over the last 5 games, and this is something I had brought up earlier. You know, he's got 68.7% completion percentage. He's one of the top quarterbacks over the last 5 games. He's thrown for over 1,000 yards, 9 TDs to 2 interceptions. I mean, that's top quarterback stats over a 5-game period.
Yeah. And not a high. Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and we keep seeing Stafford in LA, like we talked about a couple weeks ago. And it's kind of mind-boggling to me to see where Stafford's season's going with all that talent on the Rams, and what Goff is doing with Amon St. a rookie. That's
making him look good.
He's doing that with a rookie, and the rest of his squad is guys who, again, we've talked about this before, is third and fourth string guys. And
a rookie play caller too.
Yeah,
and a bad play caller, a bad rookie play caller.
Yeah, he's definitely. That's what I say. He's definitely not. You can tell from this offense. Now, again, the Cards game went really well for them on all sides of the ball, but this last game, the offense has no juice. They don't have any cleverness scheme to it.
No, juice is the right word. There's no juice.
So
no juice. Capri Sun squeezed dry. There's nothing in there.
Goff is just not. He's so. I'm actually even more impressed by. A few weeks ago, we were kind of joking about these things, but now you look at him and you go, hey, and, we talked about it last week with quarterback Matt on, the quarterback situation, letting guys get some time. Well, maybe this is what's happening for Goff. Maybe it's not his ride off into the sunset just yet. Maybe he's not going to be that journeyman quarterback. Maybe he has a chance in Detroit. And obviously there'll be a restructure of the contract if he doesn't play up to par of what he's getting paid. So, they may be able to rework that over next year.
Imagine if Goff gets extended, that would be incredible.
I'm just telling you. Well, and I could see him again, like doing this for a 2-year stint and going, hey, because 2 years from now, the quarterback draft in the NFL is going to be really, 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 really good. So if you go, hey, let's just have Goff, we'll give him a 2-year tryout and then see where the draft falls. In the 2023 draft, see how that falls. And the Lions are going to have some first-round picks, down the road. So maybe they can finagle their way into that, and have Goff perform for a few years and get them by and draft up and build around this team. And then they can have Goff be their long-term quarterback if that's how it works. But they got to have some talent on this team. The defense has been amazing.
Yeah. Are you talking like?
Yeah.
Are you talking like Bryce Young? Is that kind of the?
Well, you got Bryce, but you got like Stroud from Ohio State coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some really, really good talent that are freshmen, sophomore type guys that'll play 1 or 2 more years, and they're going to develop more. And so the quarterback draft in 2023 is going to be light years ahead of this one, and it'll be light years ahead of next year's. So it's going to be a big draft with these guys like a Bryce Young, like Stroud at Ohio State. And again, there's a few other guys around the country that are sophomores or freshmen that's going to be their draft to come out. So you got to look at that and say, would the Lions rather have Goff in place and they pay him a little bit more than they probably should over a few seasons until they get to that draft pick? Or do they go for it now? You don't know. What if you start out good next season? and because if you end up with 10th through 15th, 16th, that's borderline. We know Mac Jones went this year, but that's borderline getting a good draft pick or not getting a good draft pick at a quarterback position there.
Yeah, not with your own pick usually. Yeah, usually not with your own pick.
Mac Jones is kind of anomaly in that range. It's funny because the quarterbacks either come from like late 2nd and 3rd round, or they're like the top guys picked.
Late first too. Late first. Rarely in the mid first though. Rarely in the teens,
correct.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. So like those quarterbacks that go, after 10 through like 32nd usually don't pan out, right? And you've had Lamar Jackson lately, and then you've had
does Teddy
Mahomes,
count? Teddy doesn't count, does he?
You've had Mahomes, you've had some good quarterbacks come out of that position, but it's such a smaller percentage of when you get to those. But it's funny because the later they get, it's like these guys that need a little development, and then they shock the world, second, third, fourth round quarterbacks sometimes. So it's funny how that works. So I think the Lions have a better option even this year if they want a quarterback, because they're going to have that Rams pick that's going to be towards the end of the draft or into the first round. They can, maybe that's the time they just take one of these DNs early, and you take the quarterback, because some of these guys need development. There's going to be some don't get me wrong, there will be 2 or 3 quarterbacks that come out of this draft.
And you'll never know, until you'll never know. But there always is one or two. Like there's very rarely none. This year might be that time that one of those draft picks that they're, if they're interested in one of those guys, that they can get later in the first instead of having to spend the second pick overall on him. Less hype. Yeah, maybe that'll help. Yeah.
That's something I see that could happen in their draft this year. But this game that they played against the Falcons this week, it was good. But again, they proved they can play for Campbell, and they're playing their butts off for absolutely no reason, which is amazing in the NFL when all these dudes are professionals and they could pack it up and say, screw it, let's get our paycheck and go home.
Yep.
And the season's over. Who cares? Like they could do that. And there's plenty of teams that do that at the end of the season. So, they're not doing that. So I give them credit.
Well, speaking of teams playing good for no reason, the Bears backups went to snowy Seattle and defeated Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I have to say that I tried not to watch as much as possible. I didn't really expect much from this game. And from the game, it's clear that, the very least, the players still do like, number one, their jobs, and number two, Matt Nagy.
Maybe Matt Nagy. I mean, they'll play. They'll play.
Everybody likes you when you win.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was expecting, like, when that game came on, I was like, oh, am I gonna watch this? But then, like, I saw Nick was out there playing pretty good, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch a little bit of it. And it turned out to be a pretty decent game in the end. For both teams that are like struggling and just kind of in the lurch just caught in the whirlwind of the NFL and kind of getting beat up by everybody. It turned out to be a pretty good game.
And that's tough. Like, it was a good game for a football fan, but there's really absolutely, very, very little that a Bears, fan or, could really learn from that game. I mean, with Foles out there, you just can't, get, anything, for going into next year. And presumably, we can get this later, but, that Nagy is kind of on the way out. There are some players that have kind of, stepped up and say that, they like him and all that, and they're, want to win for him and all that. And, but it comes down to, can they really win when it matters?
Yeah, everyone wants to win.
Exactly.
Yeah, will you actually win for him is the pressing question, not like, oh yeah, I'd love to. Well, please do.
Their red zone offense is so putrid. I mean, even basically, they do really good between like 20-yard line and 30-yard line.
Yeah.
Like when they get to, it's not even the red zone. When they get to the 30-yard line, I don't know what happens, but like sometimes they can't even get in the red. They'll drive from the 2-yard line, and they'll drive all the way down to 30, and then they can't get 2 yards. I've never seen anything like it.
No, or they'll lose 12.
They go backwards and out of field goal range.
I've truly looked at
Yes, the play call.
I've truly seen. The game against the Vikings, I had never seen a red zone performance like that, and I was ready. I was like, okay, they're not good in the red zone. Even the crappy announcers were like, they're not good in the red zone. I should have watched. I wish they had the Manning cast for that game.
And red zone offense is, that's coaching. You've got to be creative in the NFL red zone. Now in the college ranks, you can overpower teams and you can come up with a little trickery and you get in the end zone easier. In the NFL, you got to be creative. you've got to be on your A game as a coach. And the reason the Bears aren't successful is just that their red zone offense. They literally drive up and down the field every game. Mm-hmm. Their defense makes turnovers, and they can't get points off the turnovers, and so it's that's a lot of those things are coaching and play calling.
Yeah, absolutely. And inexperienced quarterback play too. The red zone is probably the hardest place to play quarterback in the NFL, and he's already in over his head a little bit just with the play calling and level of talent on the offensive line. That's a lot for on fields played, and then all of a sudden you're in the red zone, and everyone thinking even a little tighter than it already was, and not.
But again, there's success and there's not success, and it doesn't matter if the rookie quarterback is the starter, even though he's inexperienced, then that just means, again, you have to be more creative in the red zone, and you have to come up with plays that cater to Fields in the red zone, rolling him out on the pocket, having things happen where he can use his legs, run out, these run option plays that he could do. Like, there's so many things that they could actually really, really, really kind of cater around him. And you're not seeing, that's what I think we talked about, like maybe a month ago. We were talking about his not creating around even if Andy Dalton had to, that's when we were talking about when Andy Dalton had to play, and it just looked horrible. It's like he can't coach. There's not different levels of his coaching. Like, it's all the same. So like he calls the same plays for Justin Fields as he does for Andy Dalton. And it's a problem because it doesn't cater to Justin Fields as a young quarterback, like you said, but as a, basically what are his strengths? Can we cater to his strengths? That's what I would like to see. Even the Lions guy in here saying, hey, Bears fans, like, how do you feel about that, Kramer? Like, do you feel like he should cater to, I think he should cater more to Fields' what he does best.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only that, but making adjustments. I mean, you back to the Packer game. I mean, just making adjustments, and I mean that's why these coaches get paid the big bucks to make adjustments and just kind of be able to think on the fly. I mean, that's what you ask a quarterback to do. I heard Steve Young talk about. I think he was talking about Zach Wilson, and that he actually saw him at a quarterback camp, and he didn't think that Zach Wilson was going to be or was, doing all that well at the camp because he was a perfectionist. And as a quarterback, you can't be a perfectionist. Things are going to break down. You have to be able to, react and make, the smart moves. And as a coach, very much so as well. And this is just from like an armchair person, looking, and you just have to be able to do that. You have to be able to, read and that's what Belichick does. I mean, he has, I'm sure, like you talk about, they have all the preparation, but you can only do so much preparation. But you prepare then for things to go wrong. And I think, some of the, best kind of former players I've heard talk is, basically, how the coaches prepare them for when things go wrong. I mean, things are not going to, I mean, obviously all these coaches script the plays but things aren't always going to go to plan. So you have to, and Nagy just has not shown an ability to do that. And, that's the big thing is like, he's got his plan, and no matter what happens, he's gonna, and it sounds like, he's very nice. Someone will say, well, you should do this. Well, nope, this is it. We're going to do this. And, there's kind of, I'm sure that like in any job, there's a balance of kind of listening, to what needs to be done, and also having your vision, but not just thinking, okay, well, it's all my vision, because sometimes you get in the thick of things, and you're like, okay, well, now we have this quarterback who has these gifts. I think you talked about that. Let's use him to his strengths. And that was the biggest thing too, where he's really kind of, I mean, it's becoming my rant, I guess, but that he turned people off. He's like, well, we need to see what Justin Fields can do. Well, that was the problem. Okay, you're the coach. You don't even know what he can do. They didn't even give him the reps, very few reps in training camp. And really? That's, yeah.
Oh, yeah, because they named him the starter. Oh, yeah.
Dalton was the starter.
Yeah.
And Nagy wouldn't back off it.
Yeah. And you were right on there, because Nagy's been calling the same offense since he had Peyton Manning. And, I think it's an easy talking point. You can dunk on it all day long. Coaches who call their game plan, are not successful long term in the NFL. They're successful when they have a great quarterback or their conditions are right. But as you said, you have to be able to adjust when conditions are wrong. It's like Kirk Cousins. Perhaps if you're going to stand in the pocket and throw a football, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. Right? But when something goes wrong, he's like a bottom 3 quarterback in the NFL. So like that gulf is so crazy where I feel your pain there, where it's like, come on, just adjust. It's impossible because it's like the hardest thing to do on the earth is win a football game as a quarterback or a head coach. But you just wish there's like, just a little adjustment, just have a little grit,
going back to what Kramer said, when he mentioned Belichick, like that's what I'm talking about in coaching. Okay. So Mac Jones is not great at rolling out and throwing outside of the pocket. Right. He's not a runner. So when they get in the red zone, they don't go, hey, let's do all these rollouts, like play action, roll him out, on the run, sideline type things. They cater to what he does best, and they cater to what's going to happen to them in the red zone. Right. Mm-hmm. Or they cater to what's going to happen to them at the 30-yard line. They go, hey, this team likes to blitz on third down. If it's 3rd and 5 or longer, they're coming at me at a blitz. Here's hot reads. And they know they Mac Jones knows who to throw the ball to, just like Brady did for years. Okay, mm-hmm. Again, Brady, that wasn't his offense at first, but they coached him so well to say, when this happens, a guy lines up in this gap, or this happens, or these guys are – he knows where to throw he knows his 2 receivers he's going to throw to, and they cater to that. Yeah. Cater to that. And that's why I say I don't see that from Nagy when you talk about Belichick. That's why his quarterbacks do so good. Doesn't matter who plays quarterback, except for Cam Newton, right? Cam Newton struggled.
He was good until he broke. But when Cam Newton, by the way, catering a game plan.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
That system calls you got to be accurate. And if you're not accurate, which Newton's not.
No, but they catered it pretty well to him, though.
You need quick, accurate passes.
Yeah.
That's what that offense does. Quick, accurate passes. And that's how they beat defenses. But they set it up like that. And this year they go, okay, last year they tried to – you see this with Belichick, though. They tried to cater to Cam Newton. What was Cam Newton's strengths? That's the offense the Patriots ran. Yeah. It wasn't, hey, this is the offense we've run here for 15 years. So Cam Newton, you're going to run it. They catered to what Cam Newton does best, and that's how they ran their offense. And so going back to Nagy and Fields, I just don't see that. I don't see him catering to that type of player in the game. He, like you said, Peyton Manning, he calls the same offense that he called for Peyton Manning. Well, Peyton Manning isn't Justin Fields, okay, right? We're not rolling out of the pocket. We're not moving our legs. All the run pass options that can happen with that type of quarterback. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah. Kind of going back to quarterback wise, Cooper, you brought up Kirk Cousins, and what I maybe thought I was, watching that Rams Vikings game, and I think I don't remember at what point it was, but I remember seeing it might have been later in the game, Cousins, running and not getting a first down, but he was kind of timid with, like he almost like started out running like, yes, I'm going to get this. He was like, no. And he kind of like fell down. I was like,
I mean, he tried his best. And I remember that play because he was like, I'm going to get the first down, but he is not really like a runner with the football. So he didn't have the awareness to keep his knee up. So he's like, I'm going to fall over the first down, except for he fell onto his knees and then kind of fell. I was more upset when he chose to take off, and that's something that I've been, and a lot of fans have been calling for Kirk Cousins to do. Like, look, you don't have to be fast. Like, you're an athlete still. Like, you're in the gym all the time. You can still run a little bit, right? Just choose your spots. And that was a good time to choose your spots. But that play was very indicative of the way Kirk Cousins played against the Rams. He played really scared. Jalen Ramsey has a huge pass breakup, right? Well, what we don't see is what we do see on the replay is Justin Jefferson streaking across the middle of the field with 2, maybe 3 steps, and then Kirk Cousins pump faking, right? And then, all of a sudden he's got to float it in, and all of a sudden you have one of the best athletes on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL, and they're going to close that gap, right? So that was that's how he's been playing ever since they did the lean into the Kirk kind of mantra where it's like, just throw it up. And it worked for a couple weeks because we got the luck of variance, to be honest, right? You hit people in the jersey and it bounces off. Well, sometimes they catch it. But ever since it stopped working, Cousins has gone into his shell, and this is just classic December Cousins. Oh my goodness, we've seen it every single year down the stretch. The Vikings have faded down the stretch every single year in the Cousins era. And look, he's like, I don't want to make this the hate Cousins show, but it just happens every year. It's kind of like a Tony Romo level fading down the stretch, right? We're losing to the backups on the of the Bears, right? We're losing must-win games to the Rams when Stafford plays a classic Stafford game. By the way, who called him throwing balls right to linebackers? This guy did. I think he threw 2 interceptions to linebackers in that game. I didn't even call that. Just that game in general. I don't blame Kirk for that loss. Never really blame Kirk, but he's not the guy to fix that. That was an apathetic performance. Justin Jefferson, after the game, said he walked into the locker room and everyone was like chilling, and he tried to get people hyped up. Wow. Zimmer got into the huddle. I've never seen Zimmer get into a huddle before a game, like the hype up huddle. That is not a Zimmer move. He's not like a McVay, right? He's like a 70-year-old man with like a real bad eye. And he was in the huddle because the stadium was dead. Whole stadium was dead. Like the whole mood was just subdued, and they came out flat-footed. Vikings come out flat-footed. Defense plays pretty good, right? If you hold the Rams to 13 points in the first half, you'd love to have a lead there, right? And no team. This is a good one actually. Prior to this game, teams that got 2 penalties or less and had +3 in the takeaway were 52-1 since they started in like the Super Bowl era, right? Yeah. Who knows when games were really weird back in the day. But yeah, the Vikings just were handed a big win down the stretch. December, division leading team in your stadium. You need to win this to stay in the playoffs, and they laid an egg. And the Vikings just like, oh, well, we don't really want that. We're not going to take that, right? We just indecisive play calling, indecisive quarterback play. Play calling, I'll stick on that for a second. We were talking about red zone offense. Let's run our backup quarterback in a draw play twice in a row in the red zone. Yeah, sweet. Oh my God. Up the gut. Yeah, up the gut where we're not getting blown up. Aaron Donald was in the backfield before Alexander Madison got the ball on 1st and goal from the 10. In the backfield before he got the ball in the draw play up the middle. And the Vikings ran it back. And they did it again, back-to-back times. I could not. Even me, I was like, oh, they might run it, but God, just like a pitch or something, I don't know. Like, at least change it. But they ran the draw play up the gut again. And I was like, no, that's... I had a laughing fit. I doubled over on my couch. I was like, I can't believe. Like, they'll never see it coming.
Well, that's like, though, that's what we're talking about with the creativity, though. That was pretty creative. They were like, we'll fake the fake.
Yeah.
Fake the fake. We'll just run the same play. They'll never know.
That's like, yeah.
And on 3rd down, we're going to do it again. Yeah.
Or could you imagine, like, the something happened and the offensive coordinator, dropped his soda on his headset or something at that moment. And they were like, I don't know, just run the same play.
Yeah. And Kirk ain't going to check out of it. Kirk ain't never checking out of that.
The only excuse to do it again was like some tragedy.
Tragedy, and they did it again
or something.
Yeah, and this is where I like again. Don't blame Kirk, but when your team comes out flat-footed, right? When your team comes out flat-footed, and you need someone to lift you up, and like your defense is like mediocre, like they make big plays, like they did all they needed to do. Defense did all they needed to do to win that game. And your quarterback just doesn't. He punches the goddamn clock is what he does, right? Yeah. He punches the clock. Like what would you or I do when we walked into an office and everyone's kind of in a down mood? You're like, oh, wonder what happened here. Whatever, punch the clock. Like, right, I'm going to start working. Like, I don't care. Right?
When you go to your space and you don't talk to anybody because you're like, screw it, everybody's in a shitty mood today.
It doesn't matter. I'm going to do my job, and that's Kirk Cousins, and he's really good at his job, but he's just like, oh yeah, sure, I'm still over here doing my job, but that's not. You have to be more than that as a quarterback in the NFL, and maybe it's not fair, but that's what it takes to win, right? And then so he's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll play with like whatever mood we got going. Like, you're like, no, like you gotta get us up. You gotta make a play. You gotta check out of that draw play. And I know maybe they don't check out of draw plays. I don't know the system, but
I mean, come on.
You think Brett Favre would run that play? Like,
think about a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. Like there's some quarterbacks, like if you ran that in the NFL, they would start to really doubt you if you like lined up and did that twice, or they go, this guy's really struggling. Like they just ran that play and it didn't work. And he didn't like, I don't know. I don't get the whole situation. How could the coaches do that? And how could the quarterback get up there and go to, I mean, again, you think about Tom Brady, did they really just call that same crap again? Like literally we just lost like 7 yards and the handoff almost got taken.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it almost went for a touchdown the other way. There could have been a moment there where if he was in like literally
Aaron Donald was almost at the point at the exchange, right? Almost at the exchange. Yeah.
So how do you run that same play immediately again, right? And so back to Dan Campbell taking 2 timeouts. I think this is actually almost worse because
No, because this is how you get an interception and you're in the red zone and you walk away with the field goal. Like, you know, like you get an interception on like the 10, right? And so like you walk away with a field goal and it's like, oh man, like they just don't want to win it. Like they just couldn't do it. And it's like it feels like they almost gave up on Zim, or they can sense the mood. The fans are apathetic. The media is just like already talking about who's the next coach. Right. And so I feel like the whole like the vibe in the building was just bad, and the leaders on the team couldn't overcome it. Despite a couple valiant efforts, honestly, especially on defense. Anthony Barr with maybe the best game I've seen from him in the last few years, like 7 tackles, a couple, I believe 2 interceptions. I think it was 2. They string together the interceptions to linebackers.
But he's like that defense, those linebackers, like that's important for that team. Those guys are important.
Yeah.
You know, a few weeks ago, and that's on my podcast I was talking about that in a when I come up to the game, leading up to the game, is they were out with their defensive defenders. That defense looked really bad. And literally when you had Kendricks and Barr come back in there, that defense looks a lot different with those 2 guys anchoring that middle there.
Especially Kendricks.
Yeah, well,
it's not a good defense.
They complement each other really well on that defense and what Zimmer calls. And when they're not in there, you can see that defense fall apart. It's literally like when you don't have your running back and quarterback on offense in the same game, you can just see it crumble. And when those guys aren't in there, the Vikings seem to crumble on defense. But when they're in there, man, that defense looks really, really, you know, I don't know if it's Super Bowl caliber, but it's AFC Championship caliber defense.
It does. If we had the offense to back it up, it's a defense good enough. It's a defense good enough to steal a couple games.
Those 2 guys in there, that defense looks like it. You know, and that's where the Vikings are.
Well, you know, and you know, speaking with all of this stuff, I mean, you look at it with the Saints losing the Dolphins Monday night. I mean, that was big. You know, so the Vikings they hold the tiebreaker over the Falcons and the Saints. You know, the Eagles are kind of in an interesting spot. The Eagles, you know, hold the spot right now, but you know, obviously the Eagles lost Miles Sanders, so it's going to be an interesting fight. And you know, possibly if the Vikings get in, they could maybe be facing Dallas, you know, quite frankly, in that first game. So it might be an interesting, you know, matchup. So
yeah, but that would require the Vikings winning down the stretch against the Packers and Bears, which that is actually, this is closer than I thought it was. I had when the Vikings lost to the Lions, I just cleared my psyche of all the playoff like scenarios. Like before that, I'm like keeping track. I'm like, oh, we're here, and like, you know, maybe. But after that loss, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like we'll be in the hunt for the rest of the season, but it's over. The Vikings, if they can put this together, that would be a heck of a run. That would almost be a career-saving run for Zimmer, which would be classic. But we're talking about going into Lambeau Field this weekend, which I guess we should talk about a little bit.
Absolutely.
Cold weather game, negative temperatures predicted. You did a little research. How cold would it be if the forecast holds? Where would it rank in Lambeau Field temperature?
Yeah. So they're predicted single digits to around 10 degrees, obviously depending on, you know, so I did some research with the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and just a little nugget here. The Packers actually have a losing record in the 15 coldest games at Lambeau. I mean,
California boy, quarterback.
Well,
California and Georgia.
And obviously this goes all the way back to the 60s, right? Yeah. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting because you would expect them to have, you know, I mean, the mystique of, you know, Lambeau Field, but you know what? So actually the coldest game in Lambeau history was the Packers Cowboys in December of 1967. Temperature at kickoff was minus 13 wind chills between 36 below and 48 below. So that, you think of that. And obviously that was even before a lot of the, modern, heaters and everything that.
In the 60s, no, they did not. In the 60s, I know Bud Grant refused to allow the heaters, and that's not a Packers coach. But I feel like there was like a different sort of like mental game at play back then, where it was like a war of attrition. Almost football seemed like it was. That's interesting though. Oh, that's cold. Oh,
I bet it'd be tough. They played tough back then. They would. The Packers would have come out and wanted to hit you hard.
Oh, absolutely.
In those games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, big time.
Those are the games where you get the forearms to the throat type games.
Yes.
And they want you to not want to play anymore. That's how they played back then. They were out to hurt you.
Yeah, that was the point. Even in the 70s, yeah.
So the more modern one, the second coldest is the NFC Championship, January 2008. Brett Favre's last game, that was -1 at kickoff. So it's not going to be quite there. But the other one, I also looked into the coldest Vikings Packers game at Lambeau, December 2017. It was 10. So it would,
and the Vikings won.
16. That was the Hudley game. That was the year that Anthony Barr injured Aaron Rodgers, and we came back. Yeah.
So
and the Vikings were only able to muster 16 points.
That's the perfect win. That's the perfect Zimmer scoreline. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, the load size was enormous. Oh my God, 16-0. Oh, he was so happy.
So when you look at this game, obviously we don't have Danielle this week. We will have her next week, definitely, to kind of do some review. But what do you see as the keys to this game? Looks like Dalvin Cook is coming back, and it sounds like the Packers line, a lot of them have COVID.
Yeah, and if the Packers, and it depends. Like, I don't want to, because like they kind of change the rules a little bit. It feels like sometimes, or like selectively apply them. So I don't want to speculate on exactly who's going to play. I thought Aaron Hicks was going to be out, but he suited up. That was for different reasons. But yeah. If the line is completely like decimated, this could be a Dalvin Cook game. We've seen the Vikings come in there. Zimmer will be up for this. I guarantee Zimmer will be up for this, and there will be full Zimmer play calling in effect. He brings his fastball out. At this point, he's an old man, brings his fastball out maybe 4 or 5 times a year. Used to be like most weeks, right? Just pumping heat in the zone. But now he only gets up for a couple quarterbacks, and Aaron Rodgers is one of them. So I've talked about it before. Aaron Rodgers kind of passed all over him in the bank. But boy.
And I would say
it's hard to imagine the team winning this, to be honest, though, regardless.
And you look at it too, like Thielen is now out for the season.
Yep.
Obviously, fantasy wise, can you see like a big, game for either Jefferson or maybe KJ Osborne here?
Maybe. I'm hoping for a big game from Jefferson, but it's really hard to tell. And Kirk is not a great cold weather quarterback either. Honestly, Rodgers isn't a great cold weather quarterback from what I've seen. I've seen enough of it. Like, I don't have the analytics to back it up. Just the eye test. He's not as good. And once it gets like, do you know what the wind's gonna be? Do we know what the wind's gonna be? Because that's gonna be the important part. If there's a solid wind chill, that would be one of the only scenarios where I could see the Vikings legitimately winning this game in Lambeau.
What I saw, I kind of looked at Green Bay weather for Sunday. Right, it's supposed to snow on Saturday in Green Bay. It looks like, but it looks like it's going to be clear. On Sunday. Obviously, it's this is a 7:20 game, right? It's a late game, so it's going to be cold. So it might actually be. It's probably going to be the coldest in at Lambeau for Vikings and Packers.
When that sun goes down, it's going to be cold.
Yeah, and especially if the sky's clear, that's kind of a joke for people who are not from the upper Midwest. When it's snow wind, it means it's a little bit warmer than usual. They don't know about that out here in California. It's just going to be. It's hard to imagine with the performance that this team has given since the last Packers game. With the performance that this team has given in the final 2 weeks for the past 3-4 years, this team has made the playoffs one time in that time span, and they backed in. They lost this game, right? And they ended up still making the playoffs. I just find it impossible, like in any good faith, to predict a win for the Vikings. If there is howling winds, and we saw it last year, right? Dalvin Cook takes over a game, Aaron Rodgers can't throw because there's 40-mile-an-hour winds. Then maybe the Vikings sneak away with the victory. Maybe Zimmer has one of his rare, increasingly rare defensive play calling performances that can just straight steal the game. Like I said, those are fewer and far between. I see the Packers winning this handily, and this might be the first game I predict. This might be it. This might be the one that's just like, you're done. Like they'll let them coach out. I can see the Vikings losing this by 2 scores, and I think they will. I think they'll lose this by 10 points. And it's gonna be like a disappointing 10 points. Like Aaron's gonna leave meat on the bone for the Vikings, and the Vikings aren't gonna capitalize. It's gonna be like 24-14 or something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, you coulda, but like I don't know, it would be like the punt return or a weird pass interference or something like that. Like, and yeah, so I don't see. Unless that defensive line is beat up, and I'll repeat myself like a 4th time. Defensive line beat up, cold weather, and win, and maybe the Vikings win. And that's assuming no one else gets COVID, because there's COVID. As Kirk Cousins said, it's in the building. It's in the building.
Grubb, what do you think? What do you think score's going to be?
For this game, I mean, again, how Cooper just said, it's going to be weather dependent, right? So I actually think, like he said, the weather can keep the Vikings in the game if it gets to a certain point. If it's icy, cold, windy, type game, even if it's like a minor wind, but it's that cold chill. Yeah. That's going to keep the Vikings in it. But I always hesitate to throw up a low score when the Packers are playing at home. With either Favre or Rodgers, like there's just something about them scoring a lot of points.
True. Yeah.
Even when
Pretty
it's
good.
cold.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they do it in big chunks though this game. So I'll go with something like let's say 27-20. I'll give them a touchdown win.
Yeah. And another chance for Kirk to rise up. And we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So
what are you going to give him? What are you going to give him?
Because I'm going to say this is a Dalvin Cook game. I'm thinking it's going to be 27-24 Vikings.
Wow. Give it to him. The season sweep.
I guess if you're a Bears fan, you're just going to go against the Packers no matter who they play. So
I pretty much have to. But
you don't have much of a choice, really.
But obviously, Cook is rested, right? And I just have a vivid in my mind when he just ran all over the Packers last year. I don't know, was it 4 or 5 touchdowns? He had maybe a 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it was a lot. I think it was a lot of yards. It was like he had like a 99-yard screen pass or something like that too, where just like the yards, it was like almost 300 yards or something. I forgot. It was or like almost 200 or something like that. I forgot from last year. Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, and the Packers, before the last few weeks, the Packers they weren't that great against the run for some weeks there. They got run all over. So if that defense is a little beat up or a little on COVID or whatever's going on, or they, it's not like they have this unstoppable force of run defense anyway. So they've gotten beat on the run by some running backs over the last 5 and 6 weeks, pretty bad. So Cook can get it going. And
the Vikings they've been worse at running the ball, to be honest, this year too.
I know. It's funny though. They've been it's like with having Cook in and out. I think it kind of affects everybody. Not only does it affect Cook, but I think it affects that offense. Even because when Madison came in at the beginning of the year, but he knew he was going to be running back for like 3 weeks. Like when you're like game planning but it seems like now they're like, I don't know if Cook's back this week or not. You're the running. It kind of, I think maybe that's playing a little part of that too. With it could. These running backs, that confidence they get going when they're running and they're feeling good. Neither back has got, because like Madison play one game, then Cook will play one game, then Madison play. It's like so they're almost not getting to get going themselves.
That's an interesting point. It could be that. Dennison, Rick Dennison? Yeah, Rick Dennison, who was the offensive line coach and under Gary, and who followed Gary Kubiak around as the run game coordinator for Gary Kubiak. So very good running. If you're the run game coordinator for Gary Kubiak, you have a track record with some average to great running backs and average to great lines of producing. He got fired at the beginning of the season. So that also the second promising offensive line coach to just be cut off a week before the season in the last 5 years for the Vikings. We had one of them pass away about, I think it was 5-6 years ago. And then he got fired. It's just been not quite the same performance. The offensive line also getting big bodies in there. I know Zimmer mentioned that a lot. He's like, I want to get bigger up front. They move a massive tackle inside. Oli Udoh, not a very good zone run blocker. All right, shocker. Because he didn't know how to play tackle. He definitely didn't know how to play guard in a detail-oriented system like a outside zone where you gotta how it looks matters as much as what you're doing. Right.
Off the ball quick.
Yeah, exactly. And you got second level quick. No one's really getting to the second level like they were Bradbury and Ken every once in a while, but he's not really connecting up there. That's looking like a bust of a first round.
Yeah, like what you're saying, it's huge for the guards to be when you run this this offense that they run, the guards are actually a big component, and they've got to be able to move. They've got to be and move when the ball's snapped because they got to stretch out. And like you said, they've got to get to the second level. They've got to bump the first man, the defensive lineman, out of the way. They got to bump him on the ball, and they've got to get to the linebackers. And if that's not getting done, then that run game can't be successful.
And Dalvin Cook still has 4.7 yards per carry, so it's not bad, right? But they
have opened some gaps for him this season.
And the Steelers game really helped pad that, right? Where they just were diving out of the way of him. I wonder what it was without that game if you control for it, because that was a 12 yards per carry performance from Dalvin Cook.
But they have opened some gaps for him
they have.
in that scheme. But again, it's you in these offensive it blows. I know you want to be big, but in that type of offense with the stretch and all the things they do, I know they like to pound up the middle a little bit. But I get that. But I would almost take less success in the pounding up the middle than it is for these stretch plays and these plays that these tackles and guards need to either pull or like I say, stretch out to the guard sometimes has
get right upfield.
And so they've got to be quick off the ball, and they've got to be athletic. So I'd almost give up my run game up the middle more than I would what gets us our big plays out of the run game.
It's actually interesting. It's really great you mentioned that, and I'll be brief because I know we're going along here. That has been among the true connoisseurs of watching Vikings games, which is not a fun group sometimes. That has been an issue with the team building process, right? Where it's okay, so you get this outside zone run scheme with light, fleet-footed blockers, but if Kirk Cousins gets pressure up the middle, he's ineffective. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Right. And then it's we'll beef that up. And then it's okay, but the guys you beefed it up with aren't good. They're just fat. So now they can't get out. And sure, they're a little bit more of a fire hydrant in the way of a grown man stepping over it, like Aaron Donald or Akeem Hicks. Right. But then they don't have the same punch in the run game. Right. And it's just what are you doing? What are you building? What are you building? They're building separate structures within a compound, and then one's over here. And then one's over here, right? And then but they're all fine independently. This is the same thing I always talk about, right? What were you building for? That is a huge indictment of Spielman, because what is the cohesive plan here, right? What is your plan to win football games? You got a quarterback who is the antithesis of what you're trying to do. You got a coach who's the antithesis of what your quarterback needs, right? And it's a perfect microcosm of a problem with the Vikings over the last, even before 2017, which was a great season, right? They got lucky as hell that season. Right? Well, they were still,
I think they could totally, if that's an issue, what you're saying with Kirk Cousins, right? They've got to have,
and it's not just Kirk Cousins. It's just that everyone doesn't. It's triangle into the square peg.
To protect him up the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
When he passes, you're saying to protect him up the middle that they need. So I'm almost I don't know if you guys. was probably a little older than you guys, but back in the day, there used to be a game. It was a video game that came out. It was just called ice hockey. And you could literally, you chose a skinny player, a fat player, or a medium player. And you chose 3 guys. And you could build your team with a skinny player. The skinny guys are real fast. The fat guys obviously were slow, but they just ran over everybody on the ice. And then the medium guys could do a little of both, right? Well, I kind of feel like with all the athleticism that's come out in the draft lately, like the Vikings there's athletic linemen who are big now. And I feel like they could be going after those guys on the interior, especially centers. There's a lot of athletic centers coming out that are maulers but have athleticism.
Yeah, we got one of them. Not much of a mauler, though. Not a mauler, yeah.
Yeah. But one of these guys that can come out and they can reach block and they can do these things. So that's what I'm saying. You've got to choose at some point. It's like, okay, well, do I want the athletic center? And so do I want, medium guy at center and then fat guys at guard? Or do I want skinny guy, fat guy, medium guy? You know what I mean? Like, do I want one of each so I can protect up the middle against the pass? Yeah. Right. If you get a good center and one good guard and you get this athletic guard, you can protect up the center.
Yep. Big time.
And so it's like, but then you look at these teams, they run their schemes so they're like, oh, they're going to run left because that's their strong side of the line. Well, that's fine. The Vikings could do that. If they want to run, they can do the pulling options or stretch options to one side of the field with the athletic guard or however they want to do it. Like I feel like they could build around that, but they've decided not to.
Yeah, but you can't pay your quarterback. You can't pay a statue, or not even a statue. It's not even that he can't move. It's that he does not handle pressure. You don't have to be a mobile quarterback to handle pressure.
Right. He doesn't step up.
You can't pay Kirk Cousins to be your quarterback in that system, right? And like that's what never. And not that I was for the signing 100% when it happened, but like since we saw it play out, it's been like clear as day. It's been just like Twilight Zone or Groundhog's Day. Right, where it's like, oh, we're running it back, and it's like, okay, I wonder if Kirk Cousins will. No, he won't. Oh, I wonder if the offensive line, this amalgamation of cheap, out of position, late round draft picks are going to be able to protect this guy who needs protection, and the answer is no. Yes, they can get out and block sometimes, but the guy you're paying $30 million to take a beating behind tight ends, pretty much is not. Yeah.
And look at the play. Look at the play we were talking about at the beginning. About them busting up the draw. Yep. Right, Aaron Donald's in the back.
Draw.
Well, you obviously don't have very athletic guys that are blowing off the ball and quick off the ball. The Vikings aren't that inside, so they can protect the blitz up the middle. But
no, they can't. It's neither. It's neither.
But you run against an Aaron Donald, and you can't stop the defense. You get a Vita Vea or these guys, and Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald and these guys that are athletic on the inside. Jones at Kansas City.
Yep.
And
Green Bay wrecks us every year.
Yeah. And I mean, so it's like you got to choose. You got to have some type of cohesiveness in, like I feel like you're saying, it's almost like they're crapshoot. They're like, hey, let's pick this type of offensive lineman, and we'll see if it works. There's like not a plan. Like, hey, again, do we want skinny guy, fat guy, medium guy, or there's like not a plan.
And it's not even just that. It's like, so there's a skinny guy and there's a fat guy and there's a medium guy available. But what's over in the bargain bin? Like that's
like feels like we'll pick, we'll pick another, who knows at this point, running back. Let's just say they're like running back or tight end, and we'll pick a lineman later. Like you say, they're like, who can we get in the fourth round?
We do draft them, to be fair. But go ahead, sorry.
I would say kind of, to kind of sum up, I think a lot of it's identity and finding your offensive identity. And I love the analogies. I believe that was the original Nintendo ice hockey game, right?
Yeah. I remember that too. Not that I was, but anyway, go on.
Yeah, and so just kind of identity, and a lot of that, the quarterback, and we talked about that with Fields and the Bears, and you just kind of going to some of the more inconsequential games within the division. Obviously with the Bears, they don't have that type of identity, and they've been trying to figure that out for years, and so that's interesting, and it's really an interesting matchup with the Giants. You talked about they don't really have an identity. They're not really sure. Gettleman will probably get fired, and so this is just kind of a really weird matchup.
Bet it'll be good. I bet it'll actually be a good game.
It might be. Game of all the fired people. It's like
and Fields may be back. So we'll see how that goes. And you have the note there. Saquon Barkley returning to the site of his injury.
Wait, is he playing? Is he back? Wait a second. Is Barkley back in? Oh, I just assumed he was out for the season because that's what I'm used to happening.
Yep. He's been playing, so that's going to be interesting. He said he's not worried about it, but they're thinking about it.
Yeah, he got me a whopping 4 points in fantasy last week in the playoffs.
Oh man, I really needed a Bears-Vikings big game, and that was a silly thing to hope for.
They just don't have the Giants. I was listening to Matthew Berry on fantasy, and someone asked, "Could you start Saquon Barkley?" And he said, "If you start Saquon Barkley, you have not watched a snap of Giants football all year."
Right.
And you think about that; they just don't have an identity. The Bears don't have identity, so it almost be just like a it's going to be interesting because it's a football game. It's inconsequential. But, look at, the other game within the division, kind of quickly too, Lions at Seahawks. The Bears beat the Seahawks. I mean, that's kind of a winnable game. And
that's what we said earlier or before we got on air was that's scary. Like if as a Lions fan, you're like, again, we want them to play good. You want them to do good. You want them to, but right now you want to hold on to the power draft picks up there 1, 2, or 3. And you want to stay ahead of the Texans who might be QB hungry, and again the Giants who are going to be QB hungry up there. And there's a couple teams in the early teens that might want quarterbacks that if there's a guy up there pressing and they're so again you have a lot of power positions there. So staying at that is good. But yeah, this is a scary winnable game now. I didn't think again when we talked about this 3 weeks ago. I said look at the schedule or 2 weeks ago they don't have to tank. But now I'm a little worried about it because there's no way that I don't think anybody in the football world, including maybe some of the Lions, thought they would beat the Cardinals. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. So
not a player in that locker room was legitimately like, yeah, it's a W.
Yeah.
Or blow them out the way they did.
And you go out each week and you play the games because
hell yeah.
And that's what they say, any given Sunday and blah blah blah. But yeah, so now looking at this Seahawks game and watching how the Seahawks perform. Actually, I watch a lot of football. That's like I love it. I'm a connoisseur of NFL football and collegiate football, and so I watch a lot of each team. And so the Seahawks have looked just. Even in their wins that they've won, they don't look good. And teams actually have been losing against the Seahawks rather than the Seahawks beating teams.
Yeah. And they have enough for a couple good plays because they have good receivers. And
They
make
make some plays and they've got some down the field things. But even in like this game, they hit Metcalf. Like I'm thinking when I see the weather, okay, this is going to be a running game. And the Seahawks come out and they hit the long pass for a touchdown to Metcalf. And you're like, oh man, the Seahawks came to play, and then it just falls like they're at home. Like that's not a thing you normally see.
Yep.
So now I'm worried. I'm going, well, if the Bears can go there and beat the Seahawks, I think it gives the Lions a chance, and it's kind of scary going, no, I don't want, we had a good setup last week with the Texans beating the Titans and not the Titans. They beat the Titans. They beat who the Texans beat.
Now I think it's the Titans.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, the Texans beat
a team they should have. I'll have to look at
anyway. The Texans won, and that's great for the Lions, and that's all that matters. I don't care who they beat now. Like they beat somebody, and the Lions. It's good for them, right? Because that moves Houston up one more game over the Lions in the draft. So again, as we're looking at draft picks here, but.
They beat the Chargers, by the way.
The Chargers. I was like, it was a good team.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like again, any given Sunday, but it's getting a little scary in there because some of these teams, the Lions are performing well, and teams like the Seahawks, again, if they beat the Seahawks only have 3 wins, right? So then the Lions are better. The Lions move way up in the draft.
Yeah, big,
Seahawks,
huge. Yeah,
all these teams are going to be ahead of them. So we're getting a little close here.
I want to hear something wild about it because none of us have a dirty little secret. Grubb isn't actually a Lions fan.
Really?
Who would you rather be? You are now. Who would you rather be, you guys? Would you rather be a Lions fan? And of questions we didn't think we'd be asking ourselves in 2021. Would you rather be a Lions fan or a Seahawks fan? Because I'm pretty sure I'd rather be a Lions fan right now.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
No draft picks? Like no first rounds for 2 years for a bad player.
Playing with promise all season.
Yeah.
Like the Seahawks have looked like garbage all season.
Trash.
The Lions have actually played with spunk and charisma, whether they've won or lost.
Good defense too.
Almost every game, but maybe 3 in the entire season. And as bad as they were supposed to be on both sides of the ball, I'm like the future looks good with the draft picks and how this team's playing for their coach right now.
No bad contracts, really. I mean, Goff kind of, but that's like by design, really. So it's not a big deal.
Again, though, that's something they can renegotiate next season, and they can bust all these things down, and they can get some free agents to come there, freeing up some money over the next few seasons. And this last season, they can have a chance here soon. And so if they win this game, it's a winnable game, and that's scary for this year. But in the same time, like over I'd rather be the Lions, right now.
Yeah.
The Seahawks, Russ might be on his way out. He might stop cooking there at any moment. So
Harold might be on the way
close
out.
The restaurant down and move on.
Yes.
And so you don't know what's going to happen there. This league is so funny and fickle in a way that, like, you could lose a quarterback, you could lose a coach, and you might have been good for a long period of time. And you may never, like, look at the 49ers. Like, when I was growing up as a kid, the 49ers, the Redskins, and the Cowboys were the dominant forces in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the Bills in the AFC. Those were like some of the dominant forces. Mm-hmm. They lost a coach. They lost a quarterback. And look how many years they just go. So this, you never know with the Seahawks. This could be Russ is on his way out. Then Carroll's up there in age now. He's what, 74 or something?
He's old. He's older than Zimmer, if you can believe, like a lot.
So what's going to happen to them over the next few years? Because I don't know if he stays around, especially again. Sometimes your welcome is worn in the NFL, no matter how long you've been there. It's happened to Bill Cowher. I mean, it's happened to some of the greats. Jimmy Johnson at the Cowboys was quick, but he wore out his welcome, and it was a few years span. But he was a coach that could have coached there for life. So you never know. But as that question, as the answer, definitely Lions.
Lions, right?
Yeah.
Well, and so talking about just kind of moving in, want to do my rant. Speaking of someone who has worn out their welcome, so obviously, Nagy, everyone believes he has he's done. They're not going to take advantage of this 2-week window now that the NFL has provided, mainly because they're just not sure GM wise if, what they're going to do. They have, basically, have feelers around the league for GM candidates. It's just kind of a mess. We don't know if Ryan Pace is going to, be there, if he's going to get promoted, but my rant basically, and we talked about this a little bit pre-show, is I heard Hub Arkish on Chicago Sports Radio just talking about Nagy's such a nice guy, and he was upset and all that basically he's being treated badly. Well, no, your job is to win football games. And this is where, like, organizationally, they run it like a family, and that's great if it's, a family business, but this is, $1 billion product, whatever, you want to have, organizationally, they don't even have someone really, that's like a czar of football or whatever. And they just organizationally, they have a money guy that basically makes football decisions, and they just don't know what identity from the whole organization. They don't know what they're doing. And that's been the issue. And yes, Nagy may be a nice guy, but that doesn't mean he needs to stay. And he was brought in as this offensive guru. It has not gone well. Okay, let's move on. Trubisky, I saw him at training camp, one of the nicest guys. That doesn't mean he's good at his job, he should keep his job. And so that's the tough thing. Yes, the Bears have this unflinching loyalty within their within Hallis Hall, but that's not going to win football games. And that's why we have not been even close to the class of this division. Even when we had an amazing defense, we had Rex Grossman at quarterback, so organizationally, we don't know what we're doing. Now we have a good quarterback. We have an aging defense that just kind of on the downturn, and they just need to get it right. They're going to take their time, but it's just tough to trust that they're going to make the right choices. And we need to be prepared. Obviously we're hoping that Aaron Rodgers as a Bears fan leaves, but we just need to be prepared to take that step, because as we talked about the Lions, they have, some good things happening, a lot of good young players, draft picks. The Bears don't even have a first round draft pick because
they have a good identity though. The Lions do have a good identity for once.
The Lions do, and the Bears don't. So that's my rant.
But if there is hope, it is because the Lions is a family organization too, and they have no idea what they're doing. But they found a guy. You can still find a guy. So there is hope. Yeah, the Fords are oof.
I mean, the Lions in all perspective have been bad.
Oh, horrible.
Always.
All our entire lives, everybody's entire life.
Yeah.
Like the Lions, it's not even kidding. Like the Lions have never been good. And that fascinates me.
Yeah.
As a football fan to go,
it's crazy.
Even in baseball, you look at all the sports, teams go up and teams go down, and there's teams that stay really good for a long, long, long time.
Yeah.
And there's teams that, but you have ups and downs in all these sports of
even the Browns.
But the Lions just stay bad
all the time.
They continuously don't make the playoffs. And even when I was a young kid, the Lions weren't making the playoffs. The Lions have always been the stadium where you see the people wearing bags over their heads. It's like.
That's their identity. Shame.
Yeah. And that's tough, man. And that's tough. And that's sad that, like you said, though, this goes to ownership and this goes to people who want to win.
Yes.
And it blows my mind because the Ford family as a family obviously has been about winning business for a long time. Right. So it's funny that they just kind of are like, well, we own the Lions and that's cool.
Because then everything they own, they just got. Right? It was I own Ford. Okay, yes.
Was handed to them, so they're like,
not that they're not to make a value statement on them, but that does kind of track with how they got control.
I own the Lions, and I put our name on the stadium. I'm like, that's kind of.
That's cool.
And they're lovely people, and don't get me wrong, even with the Bears, right? They're really cool. The people are cool. They're very nice ownerships, and that's fine, and family business, and they treat it like that. If you're their coach, they kind of treat you like you're their son, and they're in it with you.
I hate that. I hate that in every work environment, by the way. But anyway, go on.
So it's a little strange.
Yeah.
But it's also a little. You get a little nostalgic moment for these teams and these ownerships, and
absolutely.
Well, I'm going to do something here, and I wish I probably wouldn't have to do this, but it just came to mind. The Bears have kind of, I hear it so much of we're one of the pillar franchises, and McCaskey, it goes back, But it almost reminds me, and I hate that I am even making this comparison, but it reminds me of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, how they are,
heritage.
Yes.
Program.
We sell out all these games and we won championships
and we're awful.
And we were really good and they were good because and they were the first ones to actually do weight training. That's why they were good, And so they have this, and the Bears, you can't rest on. We were one of the pillar franchises. We have a quarterback that I think a lot of coaches will want to come to, but then you also have to have that structure organizationally that's going to win. And just the track record's not there. I'm hoping they're going to make the right choice because this is a quarterback. This is if they mess Fields up,
don't screw it up.
Yeah,
don't screw it up.
So
no, that's that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good place.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up.
Well, yeah, and so obviously,
here's your chance. Just don't screw it up.
They do have a chance. Golden opportunity. Opportunity. Talented quarterback. We'll see. He's got to take the reins too, though.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway.
that was kind of my point a couple weeks ago, just real quick to say.
Go ahead.
That was my point. I think keeping Nagy around is actually I know the fans, but as an outside perspective, I think it is better. Like, and I started saying this again like a month ago or so. It's just better, and it's reached a stage where there was no point in firing him. It wasn't.
No, of course not. No. You gain nothing. But
it could have got worse on Fields as far as growth in his mental game.
Yeah.
Right. He's still going to go in and they're going to practice his skill sets and his things like that. But again, you don't want to screw with a rookie quarterback. And it's almost better they just let this die out and let Fields still continue to work comfortably in the quarterback room. Nothing, it's weird for the employees.
Should be loose.
When your bosses are getting fired, it's weird for the employees, right? So like we were talking about work environment earlier.
Oh, yeah.
So when everybody above you is getting fired, you're like, oh my God, and there's office gossip. And so you don't want Fields going through that during the season as a rookie, as a quarterback, and him questioning a lot of things. Hey, how does this work in a franchise? How does this work when a new coach comes in? How does this work? How does that work? Like those would have been more thoughts and worries in his mind. I think it's better for the Bears to keep Nagy, keep that coach, just let him play out, let him develop under that. And then next year, bring in people he's really comfortable with as well and let him continue to develop.
Yeah, and they talked, you talked about, people kind of mailing it in. I believe, on Chicago Sports Radio, they talked about even how, organizationally you have trainers and all those people who are going to be losing jobs as well. And how they start to mail it in as well. And obviously within the Bears, they've seen that, Olin Kreutz has seen that, he talked about that. And so, it's just an interesting thing. And I think the biggest reason they are waiting is because they don't know organizationally what they're going to do. And that's, you can't hire a coach if you don't
better figure it out quick.
Yeah.
Better figure it out quick.
Because all the good,
even going back to your coaches with the Lions, that's why I'm saying, got to be happy for that. Like, even like you said, trainers, assistant coaches, water boys, people when the season's over start to like you say, cash it in. They're checked out. But the Lions, the whole organization on that football team is still competing.
They are.
And that's why I think that's cool. And I think that shows a lot for Dan Campbell. Because even when new coaches, like when, now I forgot the last guy that he was so bad, Belichick's.
He
just coached the Lions last year. Matt Patricia. God, the brain fart.
Yeah, it happened.
So, they didn't play from him from the beginning.
No, they hated him.
Like never.
They were shedding players. No, and you get a similar feeling almost. With the Bears, but not
Campbell,
quite bad.
Yeah. With the Bears, you get that what's going on now, but with Campbell, you get like that sense of they're in it, man, and they love playing for him. And he's got guys again that are third and fourth string playing for him and balling out and winning games and beating top playoff teams in the NFL. So like going to the Bears, I could see them mailing it in, packing it in. But for the Lions organization, I think that's a pretty cool moment for them because I think most of the seasons, even when they've had good coaches, let's say per se, they mail it in by now and they pack it up and they screw it. And with Campbell, they're still playing.
Well, yeah. And speaking of kind of mailing in, we have, obviously this is our last one of 2021 and we definitely have not mailed it in. We've given everybody, a healthy dose over here over an hour and 12.
Oh yeah.
Great stuff, guys.
Yeah. Finishing strong.
This is perfect for New Year's Day when you're hungover.
Yeah.
You just lay on the couch for an hour and listen to us bitch and moan about
probably fall asleep.
It's all good stuff. All good stuff.
All right. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Happy New Year's, guys.
Happy New Year's.
Yep. Once again, Freezin for NFC North Podcast. We'll see you guys.